Marcus Rashford to Barcelona is a here we go. Coming from the man himself, Fabrizio Romano. He'll be joining Barcelona on a 1-year loan with an option to buy. No real information on how much that option is, but we'll find out. But anyways, this is an exciting move. As a Chelsea fan, I've always been a fan of Marcus Rashford. I've always liked him. He's obviously done some bad things to my football club, but he's a good player. And obviously, I do still think he's a good player. I still do believe in Marcus Rashford. He's 27, turning 28 in October, which is crazy, by the way. Mental. It's been, this season, will mark 10 years since the season where Marcus Rashford introduced himself to English football, which is crazy because not only, is he still in his 20s, which makes it even crazier that he's been about for 10 years, but it's also crazy because of how long ago that is, because it feels like it wasn't that long ago that Marcus Rashford was still 22, 23. He still had time, But the thing is, I still do think he has time. I don't think Rashford, can be put into the Sterling category or the Hazard at Madrid category, where it's kind of like a player who still should technically be in their prime, but you can just tell they've lost it, or they've been about for so long that they just genuinely don't have anything left in the tank. Marcus Rashford is kind of a player like that, who's been around for so long, since he was very young, but I still do think he has something to offer for a club like Barcelona. And whether, it be starting, obviously I don't think he will, or I don't think it will be as a starter necessarily for most games, or as a first option going forward. But I think he brings a lot of versatility into the attack. He can play on the wing, he can play on, up top at times. I think he does bring a lot of good depth and options that Barcelona could definitely do with. Considering Lewandowski's getting older and, you don't necessarily know how consistent, Lamine Yamal and Rafinha are going to be, whether they're going to carry on their form, but that's been great. Obviously, you don't always know. It's always good to have a plan B. And Rashford is just that. He's going to be a plan B. Now, I can't help, as a Chelsea fan, but look at this and get flashbacks to Sancho, when we signed him on a loan with a kind of option / mandatory buy clause at the end, which obviously we chose not to trigger. But the reason why I think I'm reminded is because these are two very similar moves. Both are players who have been out of favour at Manchester United for a long time, but they're both also players that can be good or have been good in the past and are still, at an age where they can be fit and they can be in shape to compete at a high level. But they're also both, when Sancho joined and Rashford now, at a point of their career where they really just need a new environment. They need a change of scenery. It's kind of, they've been in a toxic relationship for a long time that they just need to, separate from. And whether it just be 1 year away and then they, go off somewhere else permanently, something has to happen. Something has to change. And this is very good for Rashford. He's wanted this move a lot as well. And he's got it. And I'm happy for him, man. I'm happy for him. And look, I think this, obviously we knew this was coming. Rashford pretty much, in fact, we were all surprised that he even played last season, because after the FA Cup final, it was pretty much like accepted that he was going to leave. He was crying at full time. He was clapping the fans. It was kind of a goodbye moment. I think even he thought it was a goodbye moment. But he stayed for the next season. Then obviously when Amram came in, Amram just for some reason just did not like him at all. Didn't even put him on the bench for most games. And then he went to Aston Villa on loan. And now obviously we know that he'll never play for United again, even if he doesn't stay at Barca. But with that being said, I still do think this is a loss for Manchester United to an extent. If the option to buy is high and it gets triggered, I guess you could say it's a win because they made obviously pure profit, and also it's a guy who maybe didn't want to stay or whatever. But I think Rashford, if you look at Man United's options now going forward, the guy could have done more than the guys they got now. Definitely. I think if you backed him as a manager and, given him more of an opportunity, the guy still had stuff to prove, bro. And he still had stuff to give. Whether it be goals or whether it just be something like a bit more flair going forward. He's a better forward than Højlund. He's a better forward than Xerxes. He's, in my opinion, a better forward than Garnacho as well. I do think he's more efficient than Garnacho. Shoot me. I genuinely do think that. And look, United fans, you know your attack better than me, but I've got United fans as friends who are also confused by this and would have also preferred to keep him or at least give him a chance. But it looks like United are just tired with giving him a chance. They're tired with him, showing up one season and then the next season going ghost. They're tired with kind of the baggage that comes with having Marcus Rashford at club, the wages, or whether it be, the media attention. And Rashford probably is tired of that as well. And, you can't blame him. Going to a new country, a new environment, where maybe the expectations aren't so heavy. You don't have the whole, you don't represent the club. You don't have all the fans going after you after every bad performance. I think, it's very needed. And I think that would actually help him improve, will actually help him. That some of that pressure off his back will help him have more confidence on the pitch and be more effective for the team. That being said, this is not a pressure-free move. Going to Barcelona comes with its own cons. You are always under the spotlight there as well. And he will be in Europe. And Barcelona will have a lot of expectations next season in Europe. Forget about the league, forget about the cup. The Champions League was theirs to win this year alongside PSG. They didn't even make it to the final. We didn't even get to know which of those clubs was better because they didn't make it. So there's going to be an expectation now that Barcelona have to go for the Champions League because Lamine Yamal is only going to be getting better, you'd assume. And Rafinha's in his prime, and he's just had a Ballon d'Or worthy season in many people's eyes. And it's kind of Lewandowski's last year probably at the club, or last few years. Pedri as well was starting to prove himself a lot more. Frenkie de Jong as well. Kabasi's starting to come into the mix. And you really think that they have to go for it. Now, Rashford obviously isn't going to be expected to be the main guy. He's not going to be expected to have a Rafinha-type season. But if he is the guy they turn to in certain situations when, let's say, they're a goal down in the semi-final of the Champions League, and they bring him on in the 60th minute for like a Lewandowski or a Rafinha, there will be pressure on Rashford to kind of step up. And so that's why I'd say it's not necessarily a pressure-free move. This guy's not going to have a holiday at Barca. He still has to go and do a job. But look, I do think he'll perform well. We saw him at Aston Villa, where, it's kind of a shifting environment, but not really. Like, he's still staying in the country, in the same league. But it's a new club, finally. For once in his whole career, he joins a new club. And look, he still wasn't very effective going forward or in terms of output. Simply goal-scoring terms, he got like 2 league goals in like 10 games. I think one of those was a penalty. Maybe both were a penalty. But, I still think at times he was very, very good. Against Chelsea, he was very good. He got the assist for Asensio in like the last minute to win them the game. And his link-up with Asensio pretty good that whole entire loan spell. A lot of people were mentioning that and spotting that. His assist for Ezri Konsa in the Champions League quarterfinals, I think it was insane. Just the way he shrugs off the fullback, whoever it was. I think it was Nuno Mendes, actually. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the guy has still got it in him, bro. He still has something there. And I think Barcelona can get that out of him. I think being around a squad of other world-class talents and not being in the toxic environment of Man United with bad managers and questionable talent on the pitch alongside him, this guy can be free to potentially just do kind of what he wants on the pitch and bring out the skills and bring out the long range strikes and this and that, because he's got Lamine Yamal to kind of back him up and score a brace to seal the game off. He's got Pedri to just kind of be a cushion, and he knows that Kabasi and Araujo are going to be at the back, Inigo Martinez. He knows there's going to be a solid base around him to ensure that Rashford's not going to be the guy who everyone expects to deliver the X factor or the decisive moments. So I think this could go very well for Rashford. And I think for Barcelona, this is a smart move as well for the Blaugrana, because they don't, restrict themselves with this. It's a loan. Loans are always, with an option to buy as well, are always very good. I think, in fact, the club loses more. The club that's loaning them loses more, because Barcelona don't lose anything. They'll loan him in not to be a starter. If he becomes a starter, great, then sign him. He's exceeded expectation. If he does his job, coming off the bench, contribute some goals and assists, they can sign him, they can not sign him, depends. And then if he just doesn't do great, he just leaves the next year and there's no fuss about it. For Man United, on the other hand, this is not really unfinished business for them, because he could go and smash it at Barca, fair play, then Barca pay the fee, but, you're kind of like, oh, but he had a good season, so maybe he could have done that for us. Maybe we missed out. And then he could have a bad season, or he might not meet expectations, and he's back at your club. And then his value's gone down, and you still have him, and you still don't know what to do with him. So it's for Man United, I think they lose more. That's why I kind of, when Chelsea, for example, my club, when we loan out players with options to buy, a lot of the times academy players, like Lewis Hall, for example, it's a main example that comes to mind. When we loaned him to Newcastle with an option to buy for, I think it was 30 million, or maybe it was even mandatory, but something like that, I was really upset because Lewis Hall was one of our highlights, in my opinion, for the season before when he was playing. I think he was really bright, and I saw he had a lot of potential at left back. And it was a position which we kind of needed at the time. Cucurella wasn't great, Chilwell wasn't great at that time. And Lewis Hall was better than both of them, to be honest, when he played. And maybe that's just academy tax, or it's just kind of the hype around a new player in a bad season. A new player brings some exciting talent. But when we loaned him to Newcastle, it was like, but that's the thing. If he doesn't do great, his development is kind of stunted, and he comes back, and then again, we're probably not going to trust him if he hasn't done well on his loan, and then it's just, that's it, it's over. Then if he does well, we've lost a gem to a league rival for potentially too little amount of money. Look, I think that's kind of turned out all right for both clubs, which kind of goes against my initial fears, because we got Cucurella, who's great, and Newcastle got themselves a good player as well. But I do think, for the most part, teams who loan out players with options to buy do end up coming out on the losing side for the most part, because they either lose a player who has ability or quality they didn't really know they had, or they are still kept with a player his value is just decreasing and decreasing and decreasing. Now in Rashford's case, I think it's kind of less so that, because Rashford really had to leave Man United for two reasons, because Rashford wanted to go and because Man United wanted him to go. So, I mean, it obviously would have been more ideal to just get him gone on a permanent. But look, now I think even if Rashford does well and they sign him permanently and he has a great season, I don't think Man United would even be too fussed about it, as long as he just goes. Because it's not necessarily a league rival. He's not going to be directly in combat with United. United aren't going to be in the Champions League for the foreseeable future, let's be honest. So, I don't necessarily think it's a lose-lose for United. But, like I said, I don't think giving Rashford another chance would have been the end of the world. He's also a great leader. Not probably, he's a good leader. He's a good role model. The guy's a great guy as well to have in the dressing room, to have as a presence. He embodies Man United. And then obviously if Rashford didn't want to take up that responsibility, that's another thing. But that's kind of my thoughts on it from United's perspective. I do understand it, but then I also don't. I do think United fans will probably be frustrated with this to an extent. But you let me know. United fans, let me know. Like, are you happy with this? Are you pleased? Or maybe it depends on the fee. If it's an option to buy that's high, that's above his value or near to his value, maybe you're happy with that. Maybe if it's too low, you're not happy. But that's another thing. If you make it a buy option too high and it's not mandatory, it's an option, why would the club, that just gives a club less reason to spend it. And it's just kind of like a normal loan. So then again, you have the problem that he's going to come back to your club either way. And then, if it's too cheap, you might just be giving out a player for not enough. And that's again, like, just a bit confusing. But Rashford's a guy, like I said, who I just rate. And I hope he does well at Barca. I really do hope he does well. I really like him. Like I said, I've watched him a lot. Sometimes he's frustrated me when he scored against Chelsea. But this is a player who gets too much disrespect, in my opinion. He is a Man United legend, let's be honest. And I think will go down as a Prem legend. Probably. I mean, he never won one, which I guess is a problem. But, if this is the end for Rashford in the Prem for the foreseeable future, I mean, the league won't be the same without him. He just kind of embodied that loyalty to a club, loyalty to your boyhood club, kind of, completing the childhood dream of captaining your club, starting for your club at a young age, scoring on your debut in the league, scoring on your debut in the derby, scoring on your debut in the Europa League. This guy, he was meant to be the one. And I think there were points where we were like, he can, be it. He can do it for United. He can finally reach the expectations, reach the heights. I'm thinking of that 22-23 season when he just turned it on out of nowhere after a poor season. I'm talking about the lockdown year with Martial. I'm talking about 2021. I'm talking about 17-18. I'm talking about the goal against PSG in the Champions League to send Man United through. I'm talking about the debut season. This guy, bro, he's had a great career at Man United, and we shouldn't rewrite history because of, some inconsistencies towards the end. This guy's been a great servant to Man United. But yeah, man, Man United fans, let me know what you think of this. If you're not Man United fans, still let me know. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on, and yeah, I'll see you in a bit.